No one's gonna write your future for you. You are the one that has to write your future. And if you feel confident that you need to make that leap into coding, take the jump. What's the worst that's gonna happen?
Start. So first, could you tell me more about your background and what led you to pursue a career in tech?
Yeah, so I I went to school for graphic design quite a few years ago and got out of that, got into the surf industry, enjoyed it for a couple years, and then was like, I really want to get back into tech. But graphic design wasn't like my full like passion with it. I really like drawing, but I really like the more technical side. So I looked into the software side. I found Coding Temple, and I kind of went with them because I got tons of reviews on them that were really good. I had read tons of stuff that they just provided the most innovative, like and up to date like services. So for me, I was super excited. Like that's why I really wanted to get into it. They provided it, and it felt like a good little insert into it, especially because I was new into coding. I hadn't really been into it up until that point. Hmm.
Okay. If it's okay, could you
Yeah,
share have you considered like other boot camps aside from Coding Temple while you were
not really.
deciding?
Not really. I had looked at a few of them, but none of them really like the structure that you guys had set up for beginners, was a 6 month part-time class. It would work with me to be able to work my day job during the day, do classes from 6 to 10 at night. Everything worked out with my schedule to be perfect. None of the other like cohorts that I could ever find or look at really provided something that was available that could really work with me. And then all the reviews I had read from beforehand through like LinkedIn, and I wish I could remember the sites now. That was about a year ago now, because that's when I was starting, was about a year ago when I did it. And but like tons of things just had read like Coding Temple had the best teachers, the most interaction. Classes weren't too large, so you had tons of interaction.
Yeah.
You weren't like just like a number. And yeah, so I looked a little bit, but it didn't really like nothing really worked with my schedule. Nothing worked with my schedule as well as you guys did. Mhm.
That's nice to hear. So actually, during your while you were completing your boot
Hmm.
camp, how have your long-term career goals evolved since completing your learning journey with
Oh my
us?
goodness. So, being that I had to do both of them, my time
Yeah.
management skills, learning how to do coding from 6 to 10 at night, Monday through Thursday, and then try
Yeah.
and working 40 hours, like like I had okay time management, but that really like set it down. So now like, I have a structured schedule. It's changed a little bit. I have a new job. I've started working for a coding company that does front-end based web applications. Just haven't had any like assignments yet. Still waiting on the first assignments for when they'll come into me. But we're kind of fully set up with them. So like uh it's been it, it was a pretty one more time for me on what we were going for. I just kind of was rambling. I'm just excited, I
It's
like this
okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact that you're able to have that time management skills because you're doing a
Yes.
lot of things from the side aside from completing the boot camp, which is great. Actually, I believe it's one of the most important skill in the tech industry really is to have a
100%.
good time management. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
And now my days are pretty split up Monday through Thursday. I do code, or Tuesday through Friday I do coding, and I work a job Friday or Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 10-hour shifts those days, and then work the coding the rest
mm,
of the days. And it's perfect. My management's great. I've honestly never been more structured because of how structured and it was not easy, but it was like rigorous and it made you really work. And I learned a lot from that because of that. Hmm.
it's great to hear. At least you get to experience, how to manage your time and then do other things that you want to do or other things that you need to do. So yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
okay, so moving on in terms of our curriculum and our instructors. So
Yeah.
how did you feel about your experiences with the instructors and even the
Yeah.
coursework? Were
So I
they
mean,
very yeah, go ahead.
no. Yeah, I mean, the instructors were awesome. The way that it was broken down with having your back end first, you got to learn the core concepts of coding. Like even
Yeah.
just like, and I was very, very, very lucky that I had Travis as my first teacher, and Travis was an amazing teacher. He was super like helpful with every little detail that we needed. He would answer on the days off if we had questions.
Mm.
Always had office time available. It was really cool. And then when I went to the front end side, um, oh man, this sounds so bad because I'm having a lapse on his name. But that's I went into front end specialization. I fell in love with
Mm.
front end. HTML wasn't my suit, but when it got into React, we only had a couple weeks on it. We only went 2 weeks, and then we had to pick specialization. But those 2 weeks, I was like, React is cool. React is different and unique. So I immediately said, I'm going to front end. And then we did the specialization for those 4 to 6 weeks where Grayson was my teacher. And it was two of us in a class. Most everyone went to back end. It was super, super like connected. You could work with the teacher. Brad and I would work on projects together that we could show Grayson, which was really cool. There was a lot of interaction. And then the tech residency was by far my favorite. We
Yeah.
were yeah, oh my goodness, I challenged myself. We did React through all of the front end, and I said, let's have some fun, and I want to do React Native. I want to do phone application. Why I have the teacher support if I need it and some little bit of backing. Let's try something different, and it went great. I learned how to do emulators on my computer, download them to the phone, create phone applications with React Native, and the backing was fun. Working with the back end to create the linking, working with your students was like working with a team. You know, it was really cool. I mean, honestly, like the whole curriculum, and especially if you were able to manage your time right, was
Yeah.
really, really good. Really good. But it will say if you got behind, say, you were sick or you had to miss a day or two, you could fall behind quick. So you really had to be like on top of it and making sure that like those days you had off, you were playing catch up and, but overall, I mean, I think that because of the challenge and how hard it was, it made you learn a lot strong, like way better, way better, way better. I loved it.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And it's a good thing to hear that you were able to have a lot of good experiences with other students and even the
Yeah.
instructors. Yeah. So are there any like specific lessons or tips or advice from your instructors that have stayed with you even up to now?
I know the very first, I want to say it was probably maybe 10 days. It was maybe 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks we were with Sarah and she was teaching us a lot of tech tips with your computer, commands, and she sent us some cool cheat sheets for like commands through VS Code. Things like that I still reference back to and use them all the time. Okay. Um, Along with that, personally, like when it came to React, in like I like the styling. Boot camp was or bootstrap. Bootstrap was kind of fun, but when it got more into like the CSS styling and you could go a little bit more creative with it, it really was like those were the lessons that really spoke to me. They really like were in tune with how I wanted to create my sites. And of course, with that little bit of graphic design history I had, it really helped, I think, with me seeing things a little bit more structured on the websites and how spacing should be. And it was just a little bit of a bonus, definitely. But again, like the styling, that was my favorite part. The back end was fun. I enjoyed the back end because I like to learn, learning the syntaxes, learning like the quick commands, honestly, with VS Code are crazy that you can do so much with just knowing those that you can create an app without really having to touch your mouse. There's so much you can do. So, mhm.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I think you've mentioned that you mentioned a while ago that you have a background in graphic design, and I think it
Hmm.
all makes so much sense now why you like to
Yeah.
go into front end.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it, And now like that's the best part, along with creating these websites I'm doing with friends, I'm working on creating logos with them on the side and doing the photography aspects. So that way like, I the coding was what I needed to push myself forward to create my own company in a sense, and make myself out there to do my own LLC and create websites and like, the way that you guys pushed it just was the right way to do it. It worked well with me. Worked really well with me.
Sounds good. Yeah, especially that now that you really want to build your own company in
Yeah.
creating websites. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But by the way, Julian's here. I think she's still on the road, but she'll
Yeah.
just listen in and
Dylan.
jump
Hi,
in.
Julian. How are
My
you?
apologies, do not mean to pop in.
You're good.
I got stuck. There was an accident on the highway, so I got a bit hung up on the road, but I could not miss this call. I still
No,
wanted to make
yeah.
sure that I was here and listen in, and this is super awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Firstly, just from the few time that I've been here, from what I've heard, I love that you are kind of using these skills to work towards your own brand. I feel like people don't think enough about how this could evolve into something that could be so strong in terms of a personal side hustle outside of a
Yeah.
job, right? Like
Yeah.
outside of a career. I feel like that's something that I resonated with you personally, is because I do photography as well. And so
Yeah.
me myself, I'm actually choosing to study technology as well, and I think that that was a super cool angle that you took to try and use
Yeah.
coding to able to kind of sharpen that side of yourself. So
Exactly.
I follow-up question that I have is, tell me more about how you felt about tech residency. I know you mentioned that you felt that it
Yeah.
was one of the super coolest things about coding temple. Let me know kind of more
Yeah.
about how you felt about it, what your thought process was going through it. The first time you heard about it, you're like, what's a tech residency? I feel
Oh
like we
yeah.
don't hear about it too often, because when you think of residency, you think of healthcare. So yeah, tell me more
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so, tech residency, they did, I will say, so like within the first week, they really did a great job of breaking down kind of every section of the course. They broke down the syllabus really well on what they wanted each section. So when they went into the tech residency, they kind of said that what the plan was about breaking off with students and working on a program together at the end. So I had been looking forward from the beginning towards it. I knew it was going to be something that was going to be really cool to work on. I didn't know which side I was going to go, front end or back end. And up
Yeah.
until realistically, like up until we hit React, like HTML, I wasn't the biggest fan of HTML. I wasn't gonna go to front end. I really was thinking about going towards back end. And then React really was like, oh, this is really what makes me want to do it more. So when we did the tech residency, and I was like, we it started rough. We started a little rocky because it was still kind of on like the newer side. We were one of like
Yeah.
those beginner classes. But
Yeah.
once we kind of got the structure down, we got a different teacher that really Sean kind of took over. Sean took over our
Mhm.
whole tech residency, which was awesome. He really kind of got us structured in our plan on how we should be breaking things down, which was really awesome. And it put us on the right track. To being that we had broken up front end and back end was really cool. We had two back enders on our project, and I was the solo front ender. But of course, I didn't want to do all the front end by myself. So a lot of like well, I really wanted to do most of the front end by myself, actually. I will phrase that. But I wanted
Yeah.
their input on things that mattered, color
Right.
choices, logos. Those things are things that matter if we're part of a team. That's things that
Yeah. I
really are
love that you
Yeah.
kind
important.
of called that out. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, especially like, like I love that I can pick if you want me to pick, but I would rather say,
Mhm.
hey, here's four different color palettes on this logo that we've picked already. Which one do you
Mhm.
guys like the best? And that's how then
Mhm.
you can build the website. You build off of those colors and balance and things like that. So that was the probably one of the biggest holdups that we had. But
Mhm.
then once we kind of decided color, boom, I mean, it was smooth sailing the rest of the way. The connection between the front end and back end, there was a lot of freedom. Sean would meet with us once or twice a week, but it was kind of on us to meet outside of the group. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what we did for the first month. We were really on top of it before Sean had taken over on like trying to get our structure down, trying to get our
Love
project
that.
down. And honestly, it worked out great. We had
Yeah.
a killer application. Like I said, I had taken on doing a phone application, and it was really challenging, but interesting and fun. Spending, it was like taking a whole nother course. I spent the first month
Yeah.
literally pretty much just reading the documentation and taking and doing trials and doing practice apps before we even touching into our project, which we ended up calling Neat Nest.
Wow.
Yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah. I
Uh,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to work on. We had a really good squad of backenders that challenged themselves and built in Django. So that was really cool. We got really lucky and had a core group that was excited to challenge, excited to learn, and we took advantage of it. We took advantage of it, got help when we needed, and really pushed the envelope, I think, for what the tech residency provided for us.
Yeah, I
I
love the
love
fact
that.
that Yeah, I love
Mhm.
the fact that you get to really work on a real project, rather than just like a simple practice exercise in
Hmm.
one of your modules, but really dive into like a real world application that,
Yep,
you know, hopefully it will
Yeah.
be put into like an actual website or a web app, which is very
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah. And I
mean,
think, oh, yeah, go ahead, Dylan. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, and like you're saying, we it wasn't just something we all decided, like there was like, this is what we're doing. We put in, all three of us each put in five different ideas. We batted them around and debated because we were like, there's so many potential. So it was like, it was a really cool that we had a lot of freedom. It wasn't said, you need to do a social media app, you need to do this. Here's what you
I
need to
love
do.
that
You
so
need to do a
much.
back end, you need to have a front end, and try and do everything that we did in the course, all the way down to custom user forms and like even just that little things. Don't just make a e-commerce application where you can add to the shopping cart. Add those extra implementations, make it user interaction, add a chat to it, play with AI if you want to. It was cool. There was a lot of freedom to it, which is really nice.
Absolutely. And I love that too, is because I feel like, especially when you are a creative person, that is what is super important when it comes
Mhm.
to getting a product to exactly where you want it to its best potential that you would be satisfied with. And the
Exactly.
thing with tech residency is one of the things that we love to emphasize about it is kind of how it works a lot on the soft skill side of it. I feel like when it comes to learning, especially with code or just technology in general, it's very easy to feel isolated, especially because these kinds of topics are extremely technical. And so you spend a lot of time just going tunnel vision,
Yep.
on your
Yep.
work, on your content. And so that's what people kind of miss out on when you go into the real world, is that you're going to actually have to know how to collaborate with other people, because you're
Yep.
not just going to be given stuff every single time. Every single time when you go out into the job force, they're not always going to give you everything you need to do step by step. Or like you said, like they're not going to give you what to build exactly. They're just going to give you a goal and you just got to find how to accomplish that goal. So that was
Exactly.
super cool. I really love the way that you worded that collaboration, is because
Yeah.
the whole point is to kind of be able to bounce ideas off of each other, and that's what makes it really fun. Yeah.
Exactly. That was the best part about it. There
Yeah.
was there was
Yeah.
so much, especially on the front end. The back end, it's a
Yeah.
database. It's gonna be structured. But the front end, you have that ability for so much creativity and so much like, voice from every opinion to shape it how it should be, which is really fun. That's why I like the front end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that you've gone through a lot of debates with your teammates
Yeah.
and a lot of research, I
Oh,
assume.
yes.
Yeah, it's very awesome to have that kind
Yeah.
of program.
No, yeah, then the way that it was set up with you guys, like Code and Temple built it right. They did it good. You guys like structured it out, and Sean, we were starting, like I said, we were one of the I know we weren't the beginning class, we might have been, but we were an earlier class for the tech residency, so it was still the learning structure, but by the end, Sean had the structure built and it really was like it flowed right. It made sense. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's really great.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking of getting to work on with different team members in your group. So are there any like specific challenges that you've managed to overcome? Like not just in
Yeah.
tech residency, maybe while you were doing the coursework.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the biggest thing was time management. you know. It was a huge time commitment, you know. Every single Monday through Thursday, we were here from 6 to 10. Now, sometimes we might get out a little bit early, but you're pretty much committed those days. So making sure that you could manage that, say you have to work Tuesday morning, Monday when you get out of class, you have to commit to doing the homework and managing your time, going to work the next day. Like that was probably the biggest thing. When it came to tech residency and like some of the other things, maybe a little bit with communication with your group, you know, but that's just with every learning of a team project, you know, like you're
Yeah.
gonna butt heads, you know, not everyone's gonna have the same view, but getting past that, learning, like seeing everyone's point of view and putting them all out on the table can sometimes be the best way to be like, well, this is a better point of view. Here's why, and this why, and this why, and that we were able to structure it out like that, which was really good. You know, we had a great group that we didn't butt heads that much, you know, and even through our tech residency, like the teachers were always super informative. If they had questions, they would go back. You know, when it came to challenges, it was just time management was your biggest key, and that's just a personal battle. That's a big personal battle that you just have to fight with your time management.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, and also the fact that you get to experience butting heads with your teammates and
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
encountering different
say.
yeah, encountering with different issues or bugs while doing
yeah.
the website. And yeah, it actually happens in the real world, right?
Oh yeah. We were stuck. I mean, when we were doing our tech residency, we were stuck for about 2.5 weeks on getting almost 3 weeks getting Firebase to work on our front end and our back end. It wasn't communicating. And eventually we had to gut it completely and go to Auth0. Like that was a huge challenge in the middle of trying to build a whole application at the same time that's new. You know, we're all learning at the same time. We've worked with, you know, when it was just basic JavaScript and you know doing it with MySQL and simple things, but they're trying Django and we're trying other things. So yeah, it was definitely tricky. It was definitely some tricky moments, definitely.
I love that though, because I feel like that is something that is kind of rare to be able to simulate when you are going through a boot camp. I feel like it's super normal to go through those things. And I think that the way that you kind of walked us through your thinking process when you were collaborating shows us, like, at least I was able to get that you really understood what you needed to do from the soft skills guide in order to make it
Yeah,
work. It's like when you have all these skills, you're going to have different perspectives, different opinions, different backgrounds. And so being able to navigate how to work with people like that or work with people that are, different views and trying to hash it out so that you guys can come to a goal is the biggest thing is because you're not always going to be able to pick and choose who you're on teams with, right? And that's kind of just the
Yeah.
fact of
exactly.
the matter. You're always just dealt with whatever cards you're dealt. And so I think that that was a super cool way that you're kind of able to tell us about how you kind of work through that mentality when you guys did not, completely align most of the time when it came to disagreements, when you guys kind of had your little debates. Like these things are super good to practice is because that's just going to
Yeah,
come more naturally to you when you are actually out there because oh I've done this before, like oh the last time that I kind of dealt with this is what I did or this is how I felt. Even on an emotional
yep,
standpoint, it kind of helps you even reflect on yourself, I would say, and be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling after this just happened with someone, or this is how I'm feeling after this project. What can I do next? Like what are my action steps?
exactly. It
Yeah.
literally spot on, spot
Yes,
on.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, now that we've discussed your bootcamp experience, especially the tech residency, let's move on to the career support and the job
yeah,
search process. So how was it for
yeah,
you back then?
yeah. So I mean, school finished. I definitely took a little bit of time off. You know, I was right around the holiday time. It was December. I want to say that we fully finished our tech residency on like the 10th or 11th of December. So I was like, I vacation for a month, went and
Like
saw my
before the
family. I hadn't,
holidays?
yeah, like I said, the commitment of being there for 6 months, I wasn't really doing a lot those 6 months. I was home and work, home and work. So I was like, now is my time. I did some traveling. I saw some family members, and pretty much once I got right back to that, it was full on getting the apprentice stuff set up, getting all of the career step processes. Um, I had already had a few ideas when I was finished with school on what I wanted to do. Like I kind of had already said, with Coding Temple, it really was providing me with the most code possible, like knowledge possible, and best teaching provided that I could learn like even just the simple syntaxes, and a lot of that stuff can travel between different languages. So for me, when I knew that whenever school was done, I knew I had opportunities that I was going to take advantage of. I had been trying to make connections beforehand. I know the community around me very well and have been really trying to push
Mm.
myself out there more. And it's really benefiting for me. I have tons of potential things coming up in the future. Uh, when it came to the career side, the Prentice stuff, when it came to my resume, was huge. I was lost, a lost dog when it came to trying to figure out how to write a resume with tech. It was definitely
Yeah.
like something I wasn't going to be used to. So it was really nice how they had built the setup through Disco with the different breakdowns on why sections should be that way. And then being able to talk to the career coaches as needed for any issues that I had with them was nice. Um, I got really lucky, because I said I was trying to work on projects, and of a lot of applying to jobs, building up my GitHub, building up a personal website, and really putting myself out there. I was able to kind of start getting, I mean, I recently just got hired. So now I'm kind of like
Yeah.
working towards
Whoop
that.
whoop!
So
Yes.
yeah, yes, I got hired about a month ago for a small company based out of Delaware, and just doing front end based web applications and websites and mobile applications, which is what I do. That's what I like. I can do a back end if you want, but
I
Front
love
end it
that.
is.
yeah, yeah.
No, but
But
that's cool though because you can do the best of both worlds if you really were asked to.
exactly.
You have that skill set, but you can
Yeah.
choose which you are really wanting
Yes.
to actually do, what you actually love.
Yep. I definitely
Yeah.
probably didn't take enough advantage of the career services. I will admit to that. I know that I didn't attend enough meetings like I wish I did, but I kind of already, had these ideas going through. I built an application for the company, the surfboard company I was working for, that now is on display on iPads in their showrooms that display all their surfboards. I've been doing things on the side, and like they paid me for that. So I'm doing things now that are building my portfolio, building my website up to make it more full of things. In eventually 2, 3, 4 years from now, it's not that junior developer tag anymore. It's a senior developer tag. And that's what I know, that even if I can't get a big time job, the more I commit to building websites, building applications, making connections, and not going maybe working for, make working for the big boss man and doing my own thing for a little bit, it still
Exactly.
benefits me. It's benefiting me. It's
Yeah.
not going to hurt me, that's for sure. Hmm.
I
Oh
love
my God, I
and
love that. Hmm.
yeah. And also I love the fact that you had a great head start in developing your career while you were just doing the boot camp. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the good thing about Coding Temple is that they're really gonna push you to do things on your own because as we've said, like what we've always been telling our students is that we're really building careers, not just skills, which is really
Yes.
great. And it
No,
and
exactly.
yeah. Yeah, and
I will.
reflected on your experience as well, which is yeah, great.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved it. My whole 6 months, I think it was almost 7 months that we were there, was the best 7 months of schooling I've done, just like in a
Wow.
sense of help and knowledge. So I loved it.
You mentioned that
Yeah.
you quite probably did not use the career services as much as you wish you had, or as much you
Yes.
would have thought. Tell me more about that. What do you think maybe you could have used more? What do you think you
Some
honestly
of the
wish you had spent more
technical
time on?
workshops,
Yeah.
definitely, like some of the technical workshops, there's always whiteboard technical interviews that, or whiteboard interviews that are going on, or like things
Hmm.
like that, or even down to the resume building workshops, the
Hmm.
career services 101, where you even just can kind of talk about what you're working on or challenges.
Yeah.
Um, meeting with my career coach, once I
Mm-hmm.
kind of started doing all of this coding for like my old company and now for these other people, most of my time is I'm working on things like that and not really
Yeah.
doing that stuff when there's probably, those little problems that I have that take me 6, 8, 10 hours to try and solve would probably be quick to be like, hey, I'm struggling with something like this, even though it's not necessarily a
Mm.
tech solution, but like even if it's something with a job and I'm trying to figure out how to write into this resume or write into their questions on how to answer it because of like education, they might ask questions about that, like simple things like that. Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think was kind of keeping you from using them more?
Oh, time, honestly,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
the most of it, and it's none of their fault. The best part about my schooling is could go from 6 to 10 at night. I could go from 6 to 10 at night. I was always available then. When it came down to not like afterwards, 6 to 10 at night was hard for me because career coaches weren't available then, or the tech the lessons would be more in the morning times or different time of day. So that was the one catch. So it was just coming down to time for me. My time wasn't always the same matching with what I would want to go do. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that that is just life. I feel
Exactly.
like that's what you're gonna
Exactly.
do.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
prioritize
agree on
Yeah.
your
that.
time. What is
Yeah.
gonna matter the most to me? What is gonna bring me
Yes.
forward? So honestly, definitely don't even beat yourself up about
Yeah.
not, having that time because at the end of the day, you got what you would have wanted. You're satisfied. Like
Yes.
you think that you grew as much as you could from that.
Oh,
And
I'm so satisfied. Oh my goodness. I will say tenfold. And I've recommended friends, I've a good friend of mine that's looking now at you guys and thinking about wanting to go to Coding Temple. And like, I know that like the what you guys have done, especially with the part-time program, the flex program, like those programs
Mm.
really let so much possibility, which is really nice. Hmm.
And that is so good to hear because I feel like that is what we're trying to do is to just give people that vision, just trying to give
Hmm.
them that, hey, try to take their hand, show them and open the door saying this is what you can do. We're
Yes.
we're here to give you as much as we can to get you through what you're
Mhm.
seeing through the door.
Yeah, there are
From
endless
from
possibilities.
Exactly, exactly. From day one, that was always kind of what you just said was what they always say, we're going to teach you code. We're not, but code's always changing. We're teaching you what's the most up to date. We might not teach you what's going to be taught next month because they give a new update out. But we're going to teach you the syntax and the cores that are going to make you learn every language. That phone app, the application for the surfboards, I decided I'm going to learn Flutter, which uses Dart. It doesn't even use JavaScript or Python. So I had to learn Dart specific by itself. And then I had to learn how to do Flutter as well with all of their style. And theirs looks like the craziest code I've ever seen. It's nothing like that. You build things off widgets and but because of the concepts that they said like you would learn, that's why it makes it so easy to learn. I know what it means when it says widgets or containers or how things are wrapped. When you're calling a website, it's all going to be still, like this a similar concept, just might have a different wording to it. And that's, if I could preach anything to anybody, that's what that you guys did a great job at. Making you realize that's what you're learning. And if you can take those skills and push them, you can do anything, anything.
Yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
100%. I love everything that you've been able to kind of lay out for us. I think it's
Yeah.
really good perspective. And I think the thing with Coding Temple is like you said, when you mentioned our flex and our part-time, it's so crazy because that
Yeah.
was such a while ago, it seems. And we're kind of just, we're constantly trying to improve and innovate,
Exactly.
trying to do as much. And so when it comes to the reason why we're trying to also get this feedback is because we want to be able to just keep continuing to produce things that even if you're an alumni, you would be able to come back and
Oh
then we
yeah.
build more on top of it. So those are some
100%.
things that as Coding Temple, we are trying to always continue to do is okay, we have this thing to kind of get you through the door. We want to now start trying to build things that can help you guys while you're up there, while you guys are up there.
Exactly.
Because the thing about technology is that it is always innovating. Like there is
Hmm.
nobody in the world that knows everything about it, which is why it is so huge.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So leading then into kind of to close off on maybe your future career goals and final thoughts.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned some good things about your branding and kind of what you're thinking. So tell us kind of where you think is next for you, kind of what your next steps are, what you plan to
Yeah.
do, whether it's from a career aspect, an entrepreneurial aspect. Tell us all about that.
So I guess like right now, just kind of building on knowledge is my biggest key right now. I know that, I would say that I started coding pretty much almost 1 year ago today. It was 1 year ago, I think on the 12th of this month that I started coding Temple. So, and then it was my 7th month class. So really my thing right now for the next year is learn new skills, develop new skills, and push boundaries of myself, you know, apply to big time jobs, sure, apply for those senior development jobs, but for myself, create the little websites for my friends and my family and reach out to like other businesses and just do things that I can keep progressing and learning because, you know, with coding, it's not something it's you have to not take baby steps, but you have to walk a little bit first before you're running into that senior developer role. Okay. So I just want to take my steps, work my way there, and not rush myself to the point where I'm overwhelmed. I, the imposter syndrome, everyone talks about it.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard it. And
Oh my God.
especially with the senior developing role part, I don't want that. I want to make sure that whenever I am comfortable to take that step, I'm ready for it. So, my own branding, making my own websites, making my own apps, I don't know if you were here, but I'm meeting with two other coding temple students tomorrow that we're backenders and we're doing an app together. We're going to work on a cool app that I've been talking with them about that I want to do. So I just
It's
need some really good
awesome.
backenders and they're both killer backenders. I know that. So yeah, so like,
You're a
and
killer front ender. Look
yeah,
at
and I'll be the front
that.
ender. So it's going to
Yeah.
be perfect. It's going to be almost like another little tech residency. We're going to build something that's going to be really, really cool and go from there. So, and it'll be good for all of us. We're all going to get stuff for our resume. We're all going to get, knowledge and resources. And yeah, yeah,
That's
It's good
awesome.
to hear. That's awesome, really.
yeah,
It's a very rounding experience, really, to be in coding temple.
Yeah, I love that you said I love that you said that it was like a mini tech residency. I feel like that's quite literally what you guys are gonna go back to is you guys are gonna
mhm,
kind of think back on like, okay, how did we approach this? Or what steps did we do? What was the timeline that we did? Would you say, and give me your thoughts on this, I'd love to
yeah.
hear, s- specifically with the tech residency and what you learned from there, how do you think it's going to help you on, like you said now, you kind of your project specifically with your app, with your friends, and then as well as maybe specific skills that you learned just from tech residency, just overall in your career, in your ventures and life.
Yeah, I mean, I think biggest thing is going to be like structure. Being that mainly I'm focusing front end, my structure is very specific, starting with wire structures and working your way through doing Figma designs and then starting your base coding. So like for me, it's going to be just the same process, breaking it down step by step, going page by page on figuring out how we want to build it. And again, getting input at a lot of those stages, from teammates like we talked about with the color logos, like even simple placement. I have learned with the surfboard app that I did for the company. It wasn't something that I just, I showed it to them and they said, oh, it's great. They said, hey, let's do this, let's do this. So it was that was a really cool experience. They are friends of mine and their family, I would pretty much say. So I had a little bit of leeway. So it was cool, but this will be, I think, a little bit more of an experience where we want to create something that can go on the App Store, can have like a substantial login database and it's going to be a little bit more of like a structured timeline. And I think that the tech residency is going to help that make that structure simple. We know what we need to do step by step. We're not going to go in and be like, okay, let's write all the code and be done in a week because then it's going to be filled with bugs and errors and nothing's going to work or there's going to be problems and then you're going to have to spend hours upon hours fixing them. It's better to do your structure, and that's what the tech residency definitely helped with.
That's amazing. I love that that translates for you, and I'm super excited to see what you guys build.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna keep in touch because again, regardless, you're always part of CT, you're always part of community,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
gonna continue supporting you as much as we can. Once any of that comes out, we're gonna do our best to kind of hype you up, show you that recognition
Sweet.
because that is awesome. Like,
Yeah, yeah. We'll keep you guys in the loop, especially when we kind of get things figured out. We're really excited to work on something together. All of us
yeah,
are. Yeah.
absolutely. Are those, did you meet your friends, those friends through Coding Temple?
Yeah, so one of them actually we would joke at each other and we would say that we're like the homework squad because pretty
Ah,
much from the first class I created a Discord for all of us and I know it was something they were like, use Slack, but Slack was like we were in the process of thinking about going to disco and we were like, I just did this because I have always had one and they joined up into a call and me and one of the other kids have been friends since then. Fast forward actually last month, Brad, who was the only other front end designer with me, there was two of us that did the front end specialty this in the class and we did specialization and there's two of us. And last month, we went to Washington D.C. together and did a JavaScript.
Wow.
We did a JavaScript conference that was all specifically learning new JavaScript tech. We learned about like things like Pixie.js and working with website, like working with like making video games into HTML. And then
That's
they talked a little bit
awesome.
into React and React Native stuff and like maps and building into maps more. Really cool. So like we met up, he's from Boston. I'm from North Carolina. So I picked him up at the airport at the train station. I
Wow.
drove up, I picked him up. We hung out for the
oh,
2 days, 3 days, yeah, it was awesome. They had there was an event that night. It was like they had asked me to go to it. It was for like a student of the month thing. And Brad and I joined the call together, sitting next to each other. And Jessica, who was the teacher, was like, "No way! Wait, Brad and Dylan, both of you guys!" And it was just hilarious. It was great.
how was the first time that you guys saw each other in person?
Yeah, yeah,
Ah,
exactly. And she
It
said
oh,
that's one of
sounds
the first
awesome.
times like any of them have really seen two students together. Like it doesn't happen often, I guess. So
wow.
yeah, yeah. So, but we talk all the time. Now, this project I'm working with one of the girls from our homework group. Her name's Jes Marie. She's going to be one of the backenders, and one of the other kids from our class who she keeps in contact with about jobs and stuff like that. His name is Eric. He was also a really good backender. They worked on we all were in a different group for the tech residency. And then we all said, hey, you had a great backend and you had a great backend and Dylan, you had a good front end. Let's get together and do our own project this time. So that's kind of how it worked out. Just saying, hey, why don't we try this? Let's see. What's the worst can happen? We don't like it. We create a new one. It's that simple. Just take advantage of having connections now. You don't have to do it all yourself. That's the best part. You don't have to do all of it yourself. You can, divide and conquer and still create something awesome.
Wow. Would you
Yeah.
say that kind of having that support, how much of a difference did you think that it made having those relationships with you during and after your experience?
Huge, huge, huge. I mean, even beyond like the little things, like I just said, I was really excited for coding. So when it came to like everything, I was always like, yes, and I love to learn it all. And the back end was a little hard. Jes Marie understood the back end. So if I had some help with homework or I was like, hey, this isn't working, boom, Jes Marie would awesome answer it, help me out with what I needed. Brad, I would be able to help him with front end stuff because for me it all clicked, having those connections. One made any other issues that we had that say we couldn't get up with a teacher. It was 10 o'clock at night and we just got out of class and we're like, hey, what was that with Redux that we just learned with React? And what is he talking about with like, all of these weird symbols and like all of that? And we would sit down there and we would almost like after class not even do the homework and just talk. Be like, this is this. Okay, this is what this means. We would it just made it, I think, it a little bit easier for all of us in the long run to learn everything. Um, but then, I mean, some of the other kids in the class get it too. They just were super smart. So, I mean, we had an awesome class. I mean, I think it was only 16 of us, 17 of us, and all of us, I mean, were engaging. Everyone, every teacher, I mean, loved us as a class because we would talk and we would always be asking questions. And that was huge. I think just our we had a really sick group that really was like wanting to learn beyond the three of us. Like we all had a connection to wanting to learn what we wanted to learn, and it was cool. It was really cool.
That is
Yeah, it's
super cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've managed to even build new friendships along the way, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, that's the thing about Coding Temple is there's a sense of community where you get to help each other out if there are
Yep.
challenges along the way in terms of a certain module or a certain project. Like you really get to help each
Exactly.
other out, which is very awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Even the
And
little things.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like that's why I kind of love that we try not to keep things to be, hundreds of people in one place. That's why we kind of have it small so that you guys have that, area to be able to just actually spend more time seeing each other instead of having to look at like 50 people. You're only looking at like 14 other people, 15 other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that the most amazing thing about being in a room with everyone that's going through the same thing as you is that you guys have that when you move on later through the experience later after. And it's honestly quite difficult to even build a team in real life of people that you can kind of trust or kind of know the background of on a different level. So even when it comes to just, post graduation, when it comes to your career, when it comes to your ventures, you
Mhm.
have those contacts that you're like, okay, I know what this person is all about, and I know they know what I'm all about. We see each other like that. And
Exactly.
it makes that collaboration so much easier is because you know that you have talent that you can trust in your teammates. And so it's like you're
Exactly.
you're someone that I would want on my team is because we kind of went through that experience. And it also makes it a lot easier from a relationship side to build a team is because obviously it's good to have someone that is an expert, but you also need to get along. You guys also need to vibe with each other. And that is
Exactly.
another big thing. Yeah.
We've been doing it for, we were in class for 7 months together, minus the specialization aspect of it, like we were together for a while. You could see their energy and we all really like, I mean, everyone in the class just really vibed well together, which was really cool. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm curious now, what would you say would be your expectations versus your reality with the whole experience, especially with the fact that Coding Temple is online, right? It's remote
Yeah.
and the whole thing, especially since COVID, that is always a conversation, is just that community, that relationship building, especially the fact that everything is online. You really will have to make an extra effort to do those relationships, which is, you kind of get what you make out of it in a sense.
hmm
But
hmm
I'm kind of curious how your expectations were for the program. Of course, you were extremely excited.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm super,
I mean,
yeah.
I was nervous. I was nervous. I
Yeah.
mean, my expectations were that I was going to struggle, okay? I knew I was going to struggle because I'm a creative person, and coding is, well, like there is structure to it. Things are the way they are because the way they are, You can't rewrite a language, but you can style it. And that's where I fell in love. So I was like, okay. So the first 4 months, like 2 months, 3 months, it was hard, like it took me a long time to get past that stage of things are the way they are, like, but once I got past it, it was smooth sailing. So like expectations, I knew I was going to struggle a little bit. All reality, though, I think that it was easier than I expected. As crazy as that sounds, it was easier than I expected. Um, whether it was the teaching or all of it, the structure, I mean, it just made sense the way it was built out, learning the simple syntaxes first and then pushing into more in-depth areas of like the design, I think I would have struggled really hard if I had said, hey, I'm just going to go by myself and try and learn React or try and learn HTML and learn how to do the things like calling to websites or pulling data from a backend and things like that. I would have struggled. I would have been lost. And that was the main reason I wanted to go back, to go to school. So, like, structure wise, I mean, expected challenge, but I mean, all reality, it was way easier than I thought once I got past that mindset.
I love that. I think that it comes down to the mentality shift
Yeah.
and to just your willingness. I think that what you said, for example, when you, because I relate to you so much. I'm a creative person and I'm
Yeah.
studying information systems. It's really
Yeah.
insane. I hated
Yeah.
math. It's really I would
Yeah.
like past me would be like, what are you doing? I'm gonna kill
Yeah.
you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's that mentality where I love how you said that once you got past the fact that certain things when it comes to tech are the way they are, they're just
Yeah.
like that. Because when you're a creative, everything feels limitless, right? You feel like you can
Yep.
create anything, you can do anything, and that's kind of the great part of front end is that you're able to apply that to it.
Yes.
So I really love that you kind of went to school to get that structures because it's really easy. And I mean, I myself try and do this as well, is whenever it comes to learning skills or building skills, it's super easy to just try and go and do it on your own. We have
Yeah.
access to the internet. That's more than possible. It is more than possible to teach yourself code. But
Yeah.
the thing that we always want to emphasize is something that you cannot do is, or what you cannot do on your own is have that collaboration, is have the structure and the guidance. Is the reason that, Coding Temple would come in versus you going to an institution is that one, of course, it's accelerated. So you have that time security a bit more versus kind of having to, look, okay, how long will this take me? Will it take me 2 years, 3 years?
Yep.
But another thing is the more intimate part of it with the career support, with the team, with the students. I feel like it is such a huge difference in the learning experience when you have access to that versus just, learning something alone in your room.
Hmm.
And people are different, people go different ways, but that is what just love how you highlighted that because that is kind of what we're trying to get at is that, of course, you could learn code by yourself, but the things that make that experience much different and the quality of your learning and your skills is going to be super different when you actually have that structure to it.
I knew that like if I didn't have structure, it
Mm-hmm.
would be so challenging for me because of also like I said, you have to work around life. I knew that I couldn't stop. There was no way, there was no hall pass for 6 months where I didn't have to pay rent or pay my phone bill. Okay. I knew that wasn't the case. So like the minute that I knew that the structure setup was going to benefit me more than trying to learn it by myself, even if it was rigorous, I can honestly say, and I'm proud of it, I never pulled an all-nighter. And all the time I was in Coding Temple, I never pulled an all-nighter. Did I stay up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning sometimes? Sure, sure. But never pulled an all-nighter.
You
Okay.
forgot your sleeve.
So
What?
yeah, I still always
Wow.
was able to find a way to get my sleep. I was proud of myself for that.
You need to highlight that.
Yeah,
I love
right,
that
In
right,
your in
flex.
your
right,
in your
right.
journey, in your blog is gonna be like never
Yeah.
pulled an all-nighter.
No, I never pulled an all-nighter, but I would stay up later than I needed to. But then I realized, it wasn't worth staying up that late. It never was. But but no, I mean the structure of it all, it really pushed me to like actually be beneficial. It's so much more beneficial now because now I can commit to doing things at night and then know that tomorrow, hey, I did that. I did a year of school. What would have taken me 6 hours, 8 hours might only take me 2 or 3 hours now. Like it was worth it. Like, because I, I committed to 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week to Coding Temple. I didn't stop. I didn't stop. I didn't care if life had things going on. I knew that I really there will be another concert. Okay. There will be another meetup to go out to. Okay. Now, there will never be a not time that there isn't waves. So when there was surfing and there was waves at 6 in the morning, I was up at 6 in the morning. So if I had to go to bed early for that reason, that was a different ballgame. But that was the only thing that would ever shape me was that. It's like going to the gym. That's it. It's like that was my time. So,
Yeah, and no, that's super good that you still did prioritize that time for yourself. I
yeah.
love that. I really think you did a good job of having that healthy balance because, like you said, there will be another concert, there will be more times to meet up,
Yep.
but you're not going to get an experience like this, and you need to dedicate yourself to it because then afterwards, then you're a completely different person.
Exactly.
Right. And so now
Exactly.
you can do those, you can go to the concert, you can hang out with your friends as this new person, as this, new skill set that
Exactly.
you never regret it. That's the thing.
No.
Like, it's
No.
like when you skip the gym, of course you're gonna regret it. But if you hate yourself that morning, as in you want to kill everyone you see, but you
Yeah.
still go to the gym,
Yeah.
you're not gonna regret it.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
So, yeah.
I love that you woke up for waves. That is so sick.
Oh, I never stop surfing. That is the one thing that I will, and it's like even on my website that I'm working on, it's like,
Yeah.
if I'm not, I'm sorry if I'm not answering you. If it's morning time, I'm surfing, and that's it. Like that's my thing. That's all I do. I
And that is that self-love though. Like, that is
yes,
that thing that at least you do dedicate that time to yourself. That is your reset with
yes,
all the things
exactly.
you have going on.
Oh yeah, people don't realize the power of the ocean.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
You
I
get to do
love
the
it.
thing that you love, really. Like
Yes,
alongside
exactly.
working on your career, you get to really do your passion.
Oh my goodness,
It's
not
great.
to like think big, but thinking 5, 6 years from now, there are so many countries around the world that offer work visas for people that work on coding and do things like this, where you can go and live in those countries. They'll help you provide housing, but then you would provide your own food, and I would work from home there, and I can go adventure and travel the world. So not to think too big, but 5, 6 years from now, if I do have my own business and I'm just making websites for people and jumping into Zoom calls like this and that. I want to go spend the next 8 months living in Bali. I want to go to live in Hawaii. I want to go travel around Thailand, go with my girlfriend who's from Thailand and travel around with her for 8 months, like not have to worry about anything but still be able to work. And that's what tech can do for you. If you can commit to it and like really commit like I did, push things aside for a little bit of time and learn all that stuff, it's worth it. Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing with me is why I also just love
Yeah.
technology is because
Yeah.
I feel like there's that aspect of it of like, remote jobs or, the 9 to 5. But the thing about technology is that it is digital. Everything
Yeah.
about it is digital and everything about it is super accessible, which is
Yep.
why that it is the closest thing that you will get to being able to provide you with that lifestyle and that flexibility of putting your time towards elsewhere is because when it comes to technology, things can get automated and
Yep.
more things are going to become automated as we continue to go. So as long as you're able to adapt to that, your job just becomes easier. It's not going to get
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I always think about AI
Yep.
specifically is as long as you're able to know how to use it, then it's going to do you
Oh
one
yeah.
in
I've
life.
been playing with writing some AI programs here and there. They're
Oh,
Oh.
fun. They're fun,
wow.
Once you kind of all you do is set prompts for them and then they're really easy to write. I mean, you can
Hmm.
write a simple, one chat AI box on one page and have it done within a couple hours. It's not that hard, but then it's the matter of the filling the prompt and making sure that the AI is toned into exactly what you want to ask it. You don't want to ask it the weather and it give the weather if you want your AI to be specifically about boat sales. You want to be like, hey, today's not a great day to be on a boat, but tomorrow might be. Here's what you should offer you. Okay, turning that AI and like, yeah, AI is pretty cool. AI is actually really cool on the front end side to write. I was looking a lot into it recently, a lot into it. So, mhm.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would use or would you like to use AI a lot more in what you do, whether career-wise or work? Like, do you think that it is something that you might even try and have as a main skill set? Or is it more of
So
learning about it? You're kind of testing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to have it as a main skill set of something I could be like on my resume to be like, yes, I can know how to write an AI program. Do I want to use it to write my like help me writing code though? I'm not against it, but like I've I can count on one hand the amount of time I've used ChatGPT because that's the one thing coding temple too was like documentation like if you have questions 90% of the time you will find your answer in the documentation. If you don't, there's Stack Overflow and the other things, but like there's a million options out there, and I feel like the few times that I have tried playing around with AI, it has messed things up and I am just not for it right now. That's why like I said, like learning to write it could be cool to then create your own program down the line, Like that would be the cool part. But I don't want to use it that much. I don't like to use it that much. Hmm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I like that perspective. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Pat.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, I know it's gonna sound somewhat intriguing, but
Yeah.
what can you say about those people who are saying that AI is gonna replace software engineers? AI is gonna replace all the tech roles. out there. Yeah.
AI can replace a structure. Okay. You might be able to use AI to replace how you want to build the base structure of it. Okay. But nothing will, oh, the human eye, okay, will always have a better look at something than an AI will. Okay. We know what looks pleasing. And this goes back to like the graphic design aspect of it. For me, like the rule of thirds and what makes your eyes look at the page well, okay? How to split the page, what colors complement other colors, and what colors make you deter away from it. The AI doesn't know that stuff. Yes, it might, but it's not going to really know like what yellow and this yellow look awful together, but then one digit different and this yellow looks better. That's and especially on my front end side. The back end, even beyond the back end, it's going to have issues where it's not going to provide exactly the perfect data, okay? it might give you a full built backend, but there's going to be errors. There's going to be issues. So yeah, it might help, but I don't think it'll ever fully take over. I don't. I think that there are certain aspects of the web that will be taken over by AI, like planning a flight. I don't think I think it could be very easy that Expedia could go away in a heartbeat. And someone could create a simple AI program that you could type in just where you want to go, and instead of having them provide you all those searches like they do, an AI says this is what you need to book for the best price, and it does it for you. Like they're already kind of implemented in, but it's just going to get deeper. It'll replace some things, but it will never replace software developers. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
I
spot
love
on.
Yeah,
Mm.
what you said especially about that emotion aspect of it. And as I think it's that creative in us is
Yeah.
that we know that only we know what we feel. And the thing that I always think about AI is that it only knows what's already happened, is because
Yes.
we are the ones that is feeding it the data. And so maybe it can predict things, but again, this is all based on things that have already been spoken into existence.
Yep.
And so when you think about, oh, if you're going to ask an AI to look at a web page and like tell me how you feel about it, it's not going to be able to do that. When you
Yep.
come across your target audience or someone that you're trying to resonate with, you're the one that is going to be putting yourself in their shoes.
Exactly.
Maybe AI might be able to list off some characteristics, but ultimately, will you actually feel that when you look at it? And
Exactly.
another thing about emotions and just humanity is that there's different cultures. There's
You re- you took it right out of my mouth. I was about to say that. Literally, I was about to say that. Yep.
literally, like there's always people are gonna feel new things about different stuff. They're gonna feel new things about different culture. There's new music coming out, new
Yep.
videos, new content. And again, it's being observed by humans first and
Yep.
then being fed into AI. So it's always gonna come down to us first. So again,
Mhm.
also why I completely agree with you. Like AI is never gonna be able to replace, especially that creative eye of it. I know that there are things about, AI artwork, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But the thing is that, again, like there's always new emotions and new things that are being generated by us. It's because it's new.
Hmm.
We're feeling it all the time. And so AI is not going to be able to tell us something that we don't know already, which is
Exactly.
it's an
Exactly.
interesting thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
really
Yep.
weird. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like we've just gone on like really great tangents. This is really awesome.
No. Yeah. It's been awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love how this conversation is going. Like, it's not just discussing about your experience at Coding Temple, but also we get to discuss like your journey as a whole. Like from a graphic designer, you get to build up your skills in coding and software development in front end. Yeah, it's very awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
And again,
No.
like
you.
overall, yeah, just learn more about you. Like
Yep.
it's so sick to just know kind of our biggest things is again, our main center of focus point blank is always our student. And so learning as much as we can about you guys and how you think and how you kind of perceive and feel about everything is what's gonna help us just continuously try and make everything that we already do better. And then as well as hopefully inspire other people who were in your shoes, who want to be in your shoes, that can learn a lot from you guys because we think so highly and we're so confident in our own students. And I feel like something that we're also working towards is just trying to build a system where we can inspire and consistently inspire potential students or
Yep.
just a random person from somewhere around the world to come across your story and what you do, reach out to you, reach out to
Yeah.
us, we can help them and bring them through the same thing that you were able to go through. So it's
Yes.
super sick to talk about these topics, whether it's related to your journey or even just things about, tech in general, because
Exactly.
that's the whole main part of it. So,
And I'm a talker. I love to talk about it,
oh yeah,
And
no,
that's why, like,
love
when
I
Pat, you
love
had said,
that.
like, you want to do, like, a video or, like, an email or anything, I was like, nah, I'll do video. I'll do video all day long.
Yeah,
Like, I like to talk. I like to meet people and kind of talk
I
about this
love that.
experience because you really can't, like, you could put it into words, but like you even said, you can't see emotion with words and you can't see, how they really felt about it. And, like, I really was passionate about All Coding Temple. It really was really cool. I think that I got probably one of the best experiences out of it than most people ever have. It was really awesome, really awesome.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally agree with you on that. I feel like we're trying to get more of that from our students is because it's super cool when you are live and you're talking is because it really actually starts to just come out of you like raw. Like your
Yeah,
emotions, like it's just starts flowing. One thought leads to the other and it's like, "Oh, but actually like this also happened. I was also thinking about this. This
yeah,
leads me into this." Like that's the thing. And so I just love like I love how we're flowing and I love everything that you've been able to share. We are super grateful for everything that you
yeah.
share with us. And we are just
Yeah.
extremely like off the roof, so happy about the experience that you got. Like we love that. Like that is amazing that we've been able to do so much as
No, it was awesome.
for you. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, awesome. I think now we can honestly just wrap up everything,
Cool,
all the great stuff that we've just been talking about and
cool.
working through. I'd love to ask your final thoughts if you had to say what would be your piece of advice for a student that is just maybe in the same shoes as you. They're thinking of taking the leap. They're not really sure. They're not really sure if it's worth it. They're not really sure if it's kind of that thinking where, okay, well, they had a success story. How am I going to know that I'm going to get the same success as they did? So what would be your advice or what would you tell them?
I mean, the biggest thing, and it's so corny, but like, no one's gonna write your future for you. Okay? No one's gonna write your future for you. You are the one that has to write your future. And if you feel confident that you need to make that leap into coding, take the jump. What's the worst that's going to happen? It doesn't say for 6 months you didn't like it. That's okay. It's worth taking the leap. And like Coding Temple just does a great job at it, you know? And then I guess, when it comes to the actual coding aspect of it all, you know, use every single resource you have possible and there's no silly questions. Even if you ask the teacher the same question twice, three times, you learned it in class that day and you learned it in class that week, you guys are going to tell us again. Everyone will, even if it's silly stuff, there's no dumb questions when you need help. When you need help, there's no dumb questions. But yeah, definitely the first one. Definitely the first one.
Yeah.
No one's gonna, you have to do it yourself. You have to do it yourself. Take the leap and go for it.
Yeah, and that's a mentality that once you break through and you realize you're like, holy shit. You're like, okay,
Yeah,
okay. It's
yeah.
like suddenly you kind of know what you have to do and you just got to execute after you kind of break through that.
Mhm. Yeah. And some people it takes a lot, it can take big life changes for people to make that leap, and that's okay. Don't feel like but you also don't feel like you need to wait for that life change. There's no reason to wait when you can start tomorrow. There's no reason to wait. I thought about it. Started thinking about taking a coding class in January of last year. I waited a month. I talked to my friend who was my roommate in college, who actually is a software developer. He actually works for the government. He's been working for the government, writing code for the government for 8 years. Graduated with all of his computer and science. He does back end. He writes in C++. I give him all the credit in the world. I'd never want to do what he has to do. But but he gave me great advice and it was the same thing, like, you know, it's hard to learn, but once you understand the concepts, you can master any of it. And taking those little leaps and pushing yourself, especially when you have assistance, are so worth it. Are so, so worth it.
Did you speak with that friend, your like, college friend, about a boot camp
Oh
specifically?
yeah, oh yeah. Actually,
Never thought about it. I'm so
just
curious.
to here. Actually, this you're gonna laugh at this.
Oh my God.
So
Oh my God.
so,
Because I'm like,
uh,
there's always two sides. There's a perspective of going to university, getting all your degrees, and then there's the more accelerated side, or you could do both. And so it makes me curious. I wonder how he thought of it, especially from his experience where he took all his credentials and learning from an institution. Super interesting.
so I texted him and I said, "What's your opinion on coding boot camps?" And his word for word response was, "Oh, brother, I would love to know where this question is coming from." And we went all into depth about it. He said, honestly, never heard anything too bad. The biggest thing is finding structure, okay, and finding ones that are going to provide like key like most up to date in key features on what you want to go for. So for me, like my biggest thing is I've never done coding. So I knew that I needed something that was going to benefit me for what I needed to learn. So when I sent him all of y'all's detail, when I got the syllabus on the program I was going to take, I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he goes, "Honestly, structure looks great. All of it makes sense. How they're building out every single capstone and every single section of it was perfect. He loved it. Also, he said that the company he works for, well, it is for the government, but the sector he works for had 200 people in it. Of the 200 people, almost half of them came from coding boot camps. Okay. The other half were 4-year university students. Okay. Or longer. Some were, of course, master's degrees, some were doctorates, some are really up there in the program, but half of them were from coding temple, or not coding temple, but like coding boot camps. So that right there kind of like was like, well, dang, if the government's going to hire someone from a coding boot camp that they didn't do their 4-year degree, but they know the knowledge and they learned right, why can't I do that? And then that was kind of like the big push for me to look deeper into it. And then I found Coding Temple.
That is
Yeah.
huge. That
I
is
think
Yep.
really
that
huge.
Yeah, I think that proves how coding boot camps really are very employer centric because
Yeah.
it's there. Like even from a government employee saying that coding boot camp, a lot of employers, government agencies are now hiring from
Yeah.
those have graduated from the coding boot camps, which is really great.
Yeah, no, it definitely gave me a lot of confidence. And most of them had been doing it for a while now. They had done the boot camp 2, 3 years ago. They had worked their way into the system, and now we're working at that level. But they didn't have university degrees, and that gave me a lot of confidence that I don't have a software engineering degree. But I can go in and I can do development, and I can say, "Hey, I've done this boot camp. I've done the graphic design side. I've done all this. Now let's push it." Where can I fill the holes that you have in this place?
Yeah, at the end of the day and this comes down to just a core principle that I have is it's everyone might have the same goal, but everyone has a different journey, right?
Hmm.
People, when you guys end up in the same room, it doesn't matter how you guys got there. You guys are in the same room regardless. You guys are working on
Hmm.
the same things. Everyone reaches their destination, however path they needed to take it.
Yep.
And so especially when it comes to a boot camp, I do not think that everyone is for a boot camp, but boot camps are
Oh
super
yeah.
changing.
No, no, I totally agree. If you can't manage your time and you can't commit to it, a boot camp is not for you. And I will know, I know people that have asked me about it, and I love them, but I know their time commitment. And I'm like, guys, you would have to change your whole entire lifestyle, and that's like you have to change your lifestyle. It's different. It's very different. You can't work a restaurant job unless you're working the morning time. It's like there's really, in this was of course my program because of the being the part time, but it was very, very, you have to be able to manage. It is not for everybody. It is not.
Yeah, and I honestly think that that is why there's so many mixed feelings about boot camps is I feel like they should never try to come off as the one size fits all. They should never
Hmm.
come off as, this is going to help you no matter what's going on, because there are certain things that you need to consider before you join a program like this. But if it is for you, it is so worth it and it
Oh
is
yeah.
so beneficial. It
Oh
really
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. If you find your niche, you find your little thing like me with the front end, if you find your little niche, it can go miles, miles, and there's a million sides. You have, of course, like the cybersecurity and I mean, there's so many areas,
Yeah.
dabble in. I think everyone should at least try, even if you do it from home and try for a little bit, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Last final thought, just because I'm also curious, again,
Yeah.
with your college
Yeah.
friend on, his university perspective,
Yeah.
did he know anything about the tech residency? I'm kind of curious on his thoughts on.
No, the crazy thing is when I actually kind of like applied, it would have been in February, and I knew what the sections were going to be. It was actually called a capstone project. Capstone was. Um, and then once we got into the program and we did those first classes with Sarah, and they said, "Hey, this is the tech residency," and we learned a little bit more about it. I told him about it, and he was like, "That's cool. That's like super sick," because he even said the same thing. Like, you need to know about teamwork. You need to know about working on a team, and when we were in the middle of the project, we're best friends. I was in his wedding, we're very good friends. So through a lot of the project, like class, I would always be talking to him on and off and saying like, "Hey, I'm working on this now, and I learned this with Python, or I learned this, blah blah blah, with React." And you know, towards the end, he would like, if I ever had any headbutting, he would always be like, "Hey, the best thing you can do is like," he was the one that would help me with that stuff, the structured plans, the building things out like that. If I had any extra questions, he was really, really knowledgeable with that kind of stuff. And he said it's really cool that they're giving you guys this team insight, what it's like to work on a team, because most people will go through all of this and then they get out and they're like, "Okay, well, I need to write the whole project. I need to do the front end, the back end. I need to do the pulling of the data. I need to do the debugging. I need to do everything." When in all reality, you're working on a small portion of just part of the whole grand scheme of things. And it was cool, with he even saw that like what I got to do on the front end was really cool, where we had the guys doing the back end, and he was like, "That's, it's different. It's something that he didn't do at a university level. It was something that they did full projects on your own, was you have to do the front end, you have to do the back end." Now, mind you, his was in specific like computer science with like I forget his full degree, but we were roommates for 4 years. He never once did a front end, ever. I never once saw like any HTML really. Like if it was like always like super rudimentary. It wasn't anything like in depth. Most of his stuff was more in the database side, in the deeper analytics side of coding. So, mhm.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that what you said is something again that I also like relate to a lot is w- you're you think that you should do everything yourself, especially when it comes to big projects. You think that you need to know everything. And
Mhm.
especially even from when you think of an entrepreneurial mindset, you kind of want to be that person that's the know-it-all be all. You want to be able to
Mhm.
have control over everything, but then you also need to learn that you hire people for a reason. You have teams for a reason.
Yep.
And it's kind of like this breakthrough or when you realize that you're like, "Oh, I don't have to stress as much about this." Is because there's someone that's better at it at me, and that's okay. Is because we're
Exactly.
gonna do the
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why sit here and struggle for 30 hours on something that I know that someone is really good at and can do it way faster, way cleaner, and way better than me? Let me focus on my skills because my skills are different than their skills, you
Yeah.
know? Now, and that's why like most of my stuff that I'm doing, that surfboard catalog app and like all these programs I'm doing mainly are front end based. I know my skill set and I know my level, I can do a little back end if I need to. If I really, really need to, I can. But I prefer to be like, "Hey, want to work on this together and let's talk about how we can collaborate on something magical."
Yeah, and then that is how you get a product that is just super crisp, and you know
Hmm.
that in all areas you did the best that you could.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, speaking on that collaboration, it makes me curious again. I'm curious, especially with how much you've spoken about your collaboration with your teams. Did you expect to build the relationships that you did at Coding Temple or at Tech
Heck no. Heck no. No, okay, actually, let's be honest here. I'm a social butterfly. I knew I would make friends. I knew that even if we were in a Zoom setting, also, mind you, um, I'm older. I mean, not older, but I'm 31 years old. Okay. I had gone through school before COVID happened. This coding temple was my first time ever doing a Zoom call ever. Ever in my life. Never had done Zoom before, never had done whiteboard, never understood any of that kind of stuff. So I knew I was going to be fine, but I was a little nervous because I'd never made Zoom friends like this. Yes, I had friends on video games and friends in Discord, but like this was different. It was going to be a little different. But I knew that like I'd meet some people. And that's why also like I went out and made that Discord and was like, hey, like anyone that wants to talk, even if it's not coding, you want to play video games together or like any of like trying. I like to meet people. I like to meet people. So that's why we did that conference. That's why I brought Brad out of his shell. Brad was a quieter person, and I was like, Brad, we're going to this conference. You got a choice. You're coming. Like you're meeting me there. Like you don't have a choice, okay? And it was great for him. Oh my goodness, he had a blast. We both had a blast.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I mean, I knew I was going to meet people. Did I think I would make connections like I did? No. Am I so happy for him? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
My goodness. Grayson, my teacher Grayson, the
Uh,
bomb. I love Grayson. I mean, I still message Grayson. Like the first person when I got this job, the first person I messaged was Grayson. First person. Second person was Sean. Second person was Sean. But the first person was Grayson because I knew like Grayson and I had this connection that like, I knew yeah, yeah, it was awesome. So,
Oh, that is so important. That is so
yeah.
important. I think that firstly, it's super neat that this was your first time. You didn't
Yeah.
do Zoom super often before Coding Temple, if at all. It was not.
None, never once, never any
Oh.
besides Discord. That was the only video or service of anything on my computer. So I had to download Zoom and do all of that stuff. My girlfriend was over here helping me. I'm like, what am I doing? I have no idea what this is. And now I'm like, now I get all the tech questions from everybody. My job, when they have questions on their website, I go in and have to help them figure it out. It's like, it's just silly things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that again, that is super cool that it's
Yeah.
kind of your first time learning in that remote setting, especially the
Yeah.
fact that you had done your education. And so this was kind of a first time for you when
Yeah.
it comes to that, virtual learning environment. And so you were able to just really work through it and push yourself off. And I think that based on how you've been speaking about a lot of things, it really helped with how Coding Temple structured things because especially even as someone that's not used to that remote learning, it was able
Yeah.
to work for you as someone that
Yes.
has never even done your education remotely before, let alone for
Yep.
multiple months back to back, let alone the collaboration back to back. And Discord is something that's been around before COVID even. So,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
So I've had it for forever, but it's not the same. It's not this Zoom interactivity and it's cool. I really liked it, It was different. It's different. I
Yeah.
always thought I was an in-person guy, but now I'm like I can work remote. I can do the Zoom thing. I could do this all day long. It's easy.
Wow. Yeah, no,
Mhm.
it's super cool. What follow up on that? What do you think your tips would be? Any tips or piece of advice, for someone that is kind of worried about the relationship building aspect of it? I know that you yourself are not as introverted, but anyone that
Oh yeah, I know there are
still feel
people
that
that are.
nervousness
Yeah,
though. Yeah, you
yeah,
feel
yeah.
everyone has some introvertedness to them. Everyone feels some kind of nervousness about building relationships, let alone, you're gonna go on this journey with strangers you've never met before, a really life-changing journey. So what would be your tips in terms of trying to make the most out of that community and social aspect of it going through this experience online?
I mean, everyone will say the same thing. Just do it. Just do it. It's okay. Jump that loop. It's fine. You'll get over it. But like, and yes, that's true. But like, and I've talked about this before. I'm a very positive person. So like, this is like a normal question for me. It's like, you know, instead of like trying to just find a way to make a connection, listen to what that person is talking about in class. If they make a little joke on an anime show, message them and say, hey, that was a cool little anime joke you made. Okay. Find that little connection, find that little click, and start small. Don't think you have to like approach them and be like, "Hey, I need help with last night's homework." Okay, be like, "Hey, I liked what you said about this," or "Hey, I like that show too," or like little things like that. Those little connections are what are gonna make your bond be better. Okay. If you don't make those little connections, you might feel awkward on both ends. You'll never feel comfortable. I would say you'll never feel comfortable. So don't be afraid to do it that way. There's always a way. There's always a way to find that connection. Digitally is harder, way harder. But if you look at someone, you like their laugh and you're like, hey, he has good energy, or hey, he seems smart. Listen to what they say and then make a comment to them on their own. Hey, I liked this. And that makes a difference. You'll notice that person, you'll make that little connection, and then maybe they will start this conversation the next time, like, oh, I liked what you said about this, or simple things, like it's always a two-way street. If they're not going to make a connection that's worthwhile and they don't want to respond, then hey, look at someone else in the class that you might want to make that connection with. Don't feel like you have to. There's 18 kids, 20 kids in there. Don't feel like you have to be let down if it's just one of them's like, hey, I'm too busy, I can't talk right now. You know,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
always something. Hmm.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that I feel like as an introvert, it is always good. Like you said, your friend, they were an introvert, but they had a blast.
Yeah,
Like it might just take a little push from someone who could be you
yeah,
to get someone out of their shell, just
exactly.
because it gives that environment of feeling safe. It's like, oh, this person is willing to start a conversation with me. Like I'm more than willing to, do it for them. It might just be, there's certain people that don't want to take the first step or might just be nervous. Or then again, like you said, people could just be really busy. Again, like you said, this is a very much tunnel vision
Yeah.
environment. And so if you don't get a response back, or maybe it's not as engaged as you wanted, it's definitely not personal because they don't know you.
99% of the time, it's not personal.
Yeah.
Okay, it's literally that they're busy. It's sadly that's just the way the world is now. It just is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
100%. Yeah. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Pat, did you have
Yeah, thank
any?
us. Yeah.
Yeah, no, super, super great conversation. Did you have any last or any other questions or final thoughts, Pat, on your end?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm all good. I mean, I found this conversation very insightful, and I love your energy, by the way. And yeah,
Yeah.
we're very thankful for sharing your perspectives with us, your experiences, even way beyond coding temple. Like, we really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, I mean, coding temple, it's beyond a school because it helps you with not only like school and learning coding, but like I said, it helps you with structure of everyday life. It pushed me in more ways than I thought it would a year ago to be a better person. I look at myself now and I'm a completely different person than I was a year ago, but I'm a better person and I'm a happier person. I mean, I've always been a happy person, but I'm just like things are really good. Things are on the up and up. And when the negatives happen, there's always a positive outlook on it. And that's what I'm pushing for. And I love that. Hmm.
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel like the only way that you are going to get opportunity is if you do try and find that other side of the coin whenever things are negative. I feel like
Yep.
it is a blessing and a skill in itself to be able to identify when there is an opportunity. Because once you're able to see that, once you're able to see the world in a way where there's opportunities everywhere, then you actually start seeing your life change, right? You start
Yep.
seeing moments where you can change your habits, or you start seeing where you can make small tweaks, and then slowly and progressively your life starts changing. You look back a year and you're like, wow, that's crazy.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Dylan, we appreciate your time so
Yeah.
much. We'll let you go now.
No, yeah, if there's
Sure.
anything else you need, I'll go ahead and I know that Pat, you said you needed a few pictures, so I can send you guys a
Yeah.
few little pictures of myself
Yeah.
and just literally as soon as we get off of here, no
Yeah, yeah,
issues.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Cool.
Appreciate you so much for
Yeah.
your time.
Thank you so
We
much.
cannot wait to kind of watch this conversation back and just look
Yeah.
the great, amazing things. We will absolutely notify you and let you know kind of what we've been able to do with this conversation. Anything
Yeah,
you might
please
be able
do.
yeah, anything you might be able to feature yourself, share with your friends, share with your family.
Yeah.
We're really excited. Again, super grateful and we really appreciate your time. We are so
Yeah.
happy, again,
Yeah.
first of all, for everything that you've been able to experience at Coding Temple. That is, again, it just comes down to just the emotional part, the students' part, like really what actually changed for them. Aside from just getting a job or just learning HTML, and it was
Yep.
super transformative for you as a person. And that is something that you're always going to need to happen in life. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
Actually, you're the first one. You're the first alumni that we talked to via
Oh,
Zoom.
yay.
It's very
Well, I hope
amazing.
every conversation goes as well. I really
Yeah.
do. I love to talk about it, because it was just a really overall just awesome experience, and I'm super grateful for all of it. So,
Amazing. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, hope
cool,
you have
guys.
an amazing
Yeah,
rest of your day. Again, keep us in the loop with all your endeavors. Like we can't
definitely.
wait to hear about it.
Yes, definitely. And if you guys need anything else for me too at all in the future, please just let me know. I'm always
Absolutely.
around.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Awesome.
Yeah.
guys.
Dylan,
Have a
thanks
good
so
night,
much.
Thanks,
guys.
You
Yeah.
Dylan.
too. Great meeting you.